Well, hello everybody out there in Facebook land. It is the last Monday of July, if you guys can believe it, because I know I can't believe it. I'm still in shock. It feels like, February was just yesterday for some of us. So it's been a roller coaster. We all know of a last 4 months, but we are, heading through summer right now, and we have for the most part, beautiful weather here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And so hello to you guys from the Albuquerque Hispano Chamber of Commerce. My name is Shannon, and we are coming to you today in a continuation of our Trade Builds New Mexico webinar series. Want to say thank you to everybody out there that has been watching and following us all month. We've had such great questions. We've had participation. Want to thank you guys for sharing the video and the webinars and helping us get the word out about how trade builds New Mexico. And so with that being said, we have a very exciting topic for you today. But before we get started, I want to say thank you to a couple of our sponsors and a couple of the people that helped to bring this together. So first and foremost, we want to say thank you to the LIBRE initiative. Ruben and Edwin and team down there, we appreciate you guys really pulling the dollars together along with your partners and helping to support this very, very important topic, because this is how we're going to grow our state, our economy, our community, and it's so important. So we thank you guys for that. We also are working with Burley and his team at Americans for Prosperity. So we want to thank him for joining and being part of this group and the whole Trade Builds New Mexico group. Then of course, we want to thank our friends behind the scenes at New Mexico Tech. I can't say it enough. Carlos Romero and team, who has been with us for 4 months now on these webinars. If it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't be where we are today. So thank you so much for your help every day and your participation. So with all of that being said, today is a fun day. It's actually the one I've been waiting for, because this is something that has always interested me, because it really affects small business, hopefully in a positive, great way. And so today we're going to talk about supply chain and how supply chain affects trade. It is super an important topic. And if you guys are out there and you've got a small business and you're like, I'm not sure about trade, I don't understand import, export, I don't understand international, then this is the series you need to watch. Follow us at our website, www.ahcnm.org. Click on the COVID link and drop down to the LIBRE Initiative webinar series, and you can watch them all. And it's a great way to learn a little bit about it. But if you have more questions, then we're going to connect you to the right people, including the LIBRE Initiative. So with that being said, I'd like to introduce you guys to our panel today so that we can get started. So I'm going to go straight down next to me, and we're going to start with Edwin. If you could please tell us who you are and what you do.
Sure. Thank you for having me. My name is Edwin Abar. I am a new grassroots engagement director for LIBRE here in Albuquerque. I still feel I'm brand new to the job, so I'm still learning a lot and trying to contribute as much as I can. And I look forward to being with you today and continuing my work.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Edwin. We're going to come back to you, and then at the end, close us up with all the important stuff with LIBRE. So thank you for being here. Next, let's move it over to Mr. David Shams.
Hi, I'm David Shams. I've been in the consumer products industry for about 35 years with a lot of large multinationals, and now working with some small companies throughout New Mexico to help them branch out, and then also some companies abroad as they look to seek to enter the U.S. market.
Awesome. Thank you, David. We look forward to hearing from you on this topic. Frank, I might have to ask you to mute.
Oh, well, to mute?
Yeah, I'll come. That way we can't hear your background.
Okay. Sorry about that, baby.
Burley, it's all you.
Oh, thanks, Shannon. Thank you guys for joining us today. And we're proud to sponsor the series on Trade Builds New Mexico. We built Trade Builds New Mexico as a series that's enduring. And we work with our team here, Angela, myself, our partner organizations, sister organizations at LIBRE Initiative. And we're proud to sponsor this series. It's a really important topic for New Mexico. It's a vital part of the success of entrepreneurs such as Mr. Holloway and the work that is done in the state government in the numerous sectors of our economy. The supply chain system is key in integral vertical integrations and many other business models in your margin systems, and it's a big part of what makes business thrive. It's certainly part of the global dynamic. You have to be good at it to be a part of the global trade system, and ever more so today, you have to be efficient and nimble in the way that you source in your supply chain. So the more options, the better. Certainly the trade barriers that government imposes with taxes such as tariffs on those businesses artificially create massive dysfunction in the system. And we're here to highlight how much we can flourish with the free dynamics of free trade and highlight some of the challenges you see when government steps in the way. But Americans for Prosperity is a big part of the conversation. We love what we do here. I love talking economics and trade. And so really appreciate being here. Americans for Prosperity exists to break barriers. We're here to empower the individual and the entrepreneurs of that individual as well, to break through the barriers internally and externally so that they can flourish at their highest potential. And we're looking forward to the conversation today. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you, Burley. Right next to Burley is Miss Jennifer Sinsbaugh. Take it away.
Thank you, Shannon, and welcome all fellow panelists and audience members. I'm Jennifer Sinsbaugh. I'm the CEO with New Mexico Manufacturing Extension Partnership, and we are a nonprofit organization that serves manufacturers statewide to help with many things, including process efficiency, optimization, new products, and of course, our topic today, supply chain diversification and optimization. So glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jennifer. We look forward to hearing maybe some stories from some of your members. That'll be exciting. Angela.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Angela Hoffman. I'm with the Trade Builds New Mexico team. Spent over 20 years of my life working on both the policy side with the U.S. Senate and making trade agreements come together, and then working on corporate in helping companies leverage supply chains. And this is an area that I really love on supply chains. It's the connection between the great products we make, the great services, and the customers who buy them. So looking forward to the panel today.
Wonderful. And then our resident small business owner, Mr. Frank Holloway.
Hello all, I'm Frank Holloway, owner of Hollow Spirits Distillery, also the distiller. And basically we've been in operation about 2 years. We're off of First, just north of the mountain. And we are trying to import products from around the country. We try to go local as much as possible, but we do get our agave from Mexico. We also get some wheat from Canada. And hopefully one day we'll be exporting products to around the world. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Frank. We look forward to hearing from you as well. So today's topic is really exciting. And before we get started, I really do, we only have a week left, another series after this left. And I just think it's so important for those of you that are joining us for the first time and kind of either on the consumer side or a small business owner that said, hey, what is this about? I want to jump on. I really, really want to go back to our favorite graphic. And I know I keep saying I'm going to change it, but Burley, if you could find the pencil so that Wednesday we could do a different one, we'd love to, but it's still my favorite graphic. So Angelique, if you're out there and you have a second, if you could pull up that burger. I love the way that Burley explains it. It really helps us and the public and the consumer and the watching audience to understand the importance of trade and how that works. And so I think that this picture, this depiction, other than the green chili, really represents let's see if Angelique, there we go. So Burley, if you could walk us through this real quick, just so that people can get the concept of what trade really does.
Yeah, thanks, Shannon. It'd be my pleasure. So here you have a burger, and it's missing green chili. We admittedly understand that, and we need to fix this graphic as that. We all know it's better with green chili. So, but it does have cilantro going for it. And if you can't taste cilantro, I'll say it again. More for me, okay? So USMCA, it's a trade agreement that was designed and modeled on some level around NAFTA. It's a modern version taking into account things like Al Gore's internet. It's a modern system that you can use to understand some of the rougher edges of the touching points of trade between countries, between businesses. And so let's take an example of what that looks like, how dynamic and complex a simple, wonderful thing like a burger is. And so if you look at the burger here, you have, for instance, a bun. It's baked in California, flour comes from Saskatchewan, Canada. The USMCA covers Canada, Mexico, and the United States. And so this burger is going to define that conversation. But some of these are very complex and dynamic, and these come from around the world. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about this. In this instance, you get beef from Mexico that has spent time necessarily in Alberta, Nebraska, Colorado, where it's raised and processed. Cheese from Wisconsin, good cheese, bad football. Bacon from pigs born and raised in Manitoba, processed in Iowa. You get lettuce from Arizona, good weather out there for that. They have a comparative advantage, right? They have a great environment to grow lettuce, and so they're the best producers for that. So you want to go where they have a comparative advantage. Avocado from Michoacan, jalapenos from Chihuahua, garlic from Zacatecas, tomatoes from Ontario, Canada up north. So you have your white onions, cilantro. This is the guacamole. If you guys have never tried it, you got to try it. My name's Burley. I'll be your tour guide on Earth. Lime juice comes from Colima. So in just something like guacamole, you have a dynamic that's so complex. But you look at something as great as ketchup, you get that in Ohio, onions from Washington, mushrooms from British Columbia, and tomatoes from Ontario. So a dynamic, complex thing that makes a simple burger. And any of the products you have, a smartphone, a pencil, they all have that complexity. It's just that you don't think about it. You leave it up to people like Frank Holloway, who is trying to make the best product for his customers. And this simple thing that he puts out that may seem just elegant and fantastic really took a lot of work and effort and trade and negotiation and mutual benefit from comparative advantage regions around the world to make a great product that we sell here and export to the rest of the world for a profit.
So I think, first of all, thank you, Burley. It's always a joy. Your commentary is just the best. So
My
you're
pleasure.
our official burger guy. But like Burley said, you can take that and do so many things with it. And the reason I love that is because, like, for instance, with Hollow Spirits, they do a delicious burger. So that's something else that we could talk about when it comes to sourcing and supply chain with Frank. But before we get started, I really want to move over to David. I know David's kind of hiding. He's probably working in the background. But David, if you're with us, I really wanted to bring you into this conversation. You are our supply chain expert, if you will. And I want to just kind of turn it over to you a little bit. And let's talk about the importance of the supply chain when it comes to trade, but also the importance of how it supports small business, local business, community business, and all of that. So David.
Well, I think Burley hit it on the head. I mean, you have to take a look at those places where there's a competitive advantage from what they produce. So whether it's vanilla from Madagascar or someplace else, there's also a number of resources that can help, I guess, broker some of that sourcing. They know where the best ingredients are. They can make sure that there is the appropriate documentation, certification, and specs are met, which is one of the biggest things in the supply chain. Otherwise, your quality product at the end may not be as quality as you think it is. All it takes is a bad batch of grain with a mold or mildew content, or a peanut that's got some aflatoxins in it. There's all these different things that have to be sorted out to make sure that the product at the end of the day is not something that ends up in a recall once it's launched to market. So we're talking really a supply chain on two sides here. One is the sourcing of ingredients to make the product. And then once your product is made, you are in the supply chain of the retailer. So there's really two different pieces of it. And when you're going then to the other side of that, making sure you pick the right distribution partners that are reliable, that are honest, that are not going to take advantage of your situation, be unrealistic in terms of either their fee basis or the other things that they do. There's all those considerations. And I think, sourcing the right ingredients is just part of it. And then it's the logistics of getting there to make the product, and then the logistics on the outside to get it to the end use consumer. And those are all challenges in the supply chain that one has to really be on top of, and again, find the right partners.
So I think David, hit the nail on the head, if you will, with collaboration. And that's what's so important. It's like, what does it take to really go out and source the right product for your product? What's really going to make your product the best, excel, different than other people, stand out? What's going to make the consumer want to buy it? It really all starts with relationships and collaboration. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to jump over to Angela, who's been in this world as she introduced herself for over 20 years. And maybe we can talk about how businesses are looking for those relationships, how they source those things, and sometimes what they have to go through to create that perfect partnership.
Sure, thanks. Thanks, Shannon. So right now it's a really interesting time because, as our other speakers have mentioned, it's all about comparative advantage. Sometimes there's component pieces that come from one market that might have a reduced duty or tariff. In other cases, they might have a speed lane in terms of e-commerce. And we have some very new agreements that are just into place. So for example, right now, the new NAFTA, the USMCA, the US-Mexico-Canada agreement, just went into force on July 1st. And so we've been talking about that all month, about what a strong relationship we have within North America and a lot of the products that move back and forth duty-free between our markets. In other cases, it's understanding how to manage some of the risk. And we've got some products, actually a lot of products, that are caught up in both sort of the trade and retaliation list vis-a-vis the US-China relationship that's happening right now. So it may be that one of your products is on the list and you need to know whether or not you can request an exemption. Certainly if you have a COVID product, you may be trying to get off that list. Or you might be looking for a market, an alternative of Vietnam or somewhere else in Southeast Asia, or reshoring back to the United States. So you're not paying an additional 15, 20, 25% duty. You want to keep those costs down too, to make sure you're nimble. And then be watching the new negotiations. There's a lot happening with new countries that we might be thinking about exporting to. So we're in talks with the UK. And I know, Frank, you know, the European market is a hot topic for all of those wonderful spirits. It has been a growing market over the years. And so finding those new customers once we have market access is very critical for those trading partners as well. So looking for new customers and leveraging trade, expediting your supply chain and knowing what needs to be done in terms of labeling and marketing and other requirements around e-commerce. And then third, you know, right now, everybody's got to be looking to mitigate and reduce a bit of the risk because there's a lot of economic uncertainty. So those are the three ways that companies are looking to leverage the supply chain.
So thank you so much for that, Angela. And we're gonna come to you back at the end to recap those bullet points because I think it's super important that people understand how the supply chain works, why it's important to the business, and how do you maintain that. Again, going back to the relationship. And so speaking of relationships and sourcing, I want to jump over to Frank Holloway. He is the owner of Hollow Spirits, and they do so many different things, including obviously spirits. So Frank, I want to just, maybe you could share a little bit about your story to kind of tell us, you know, kind of bring us to how did we arrive at distilling today? And then we can kind of source off into the different products that you're using inside your specialty spirits.
Okay, so basically my family has been in New Mexico for over 200 years. And I've always been in alcohol and loved beer, loved what we're doing in the brewery scene. I really do think New Mexico has top-notch beer. You could put it against anybody in the world. And when it came down to it, I really wanted to get into spirits. I love whiskey, and I just really wanted to put alcohol or spirits on the same level as beer in this town. And so that's kind of where Hollow Spirits ended up kind of coming around. I told my mom about this and she wanted to be a business partner. So my mom is the partner in the business. And since then, we've been up and operating for almost 2 years now with a 3-month break in between because of all this COVID fun. But we're surviving, we're treading water, and we're going forward. So, and actually another thing that has really helped us is, of course, you at the Hispano and a bunch of other people at the Hispano. They've actually helped me develop a lot of the relationships for importing and exporting that I go through today. When it came around, I didn't know everything going into it. And so it was great having a bunch of people who were able to help me and walk me along the way in order to get where we're at and then also take me into the future where we're going.
So I'm glad you brought that up, Frank. Now, Frank and I go way back many years, but when we did bring him into the Hispano a couple of years ago when he opened up Hollow Spirits, and one of the first things we did was bring him in on a trade mission that we had done with some suppliers out of Mexico who were coming to absolutely try to find clients here to do trade with. And they were in the high-end spirits industry in Mexico, you know, Sotol, Mezcal, Charanda, those very specialty spirits. And we invited Frank in to come and meet them and kind of learn a little bit about it. He was brand new, but what's really awesome is that since then he has thought about how am I going to move forward with, say, for instance, a tequila style spirit, which we know you have to make in Jalisco, but for now, what could we do in agave spirit? So here you are today, Frank, and you recently released your agave spirit. So tell us a little bit about that and a little bit about how did that come to be and how are you sourcing that?
So we actually did talk to some folks from the Hispano who put us in contact. So we do source our agave from Mexico. It originally comes from Mexico, goes to a distributor in Texas, and then comes up to us. And so for a lot of people who don't know, an agave spirit is basically just tequila. So we just can't call it tequila because we're not in the region of Jalisco, Mexico. But we do have an agave spirit, and we actually have an aged agave spirit, which is coming out. I'm hoping in the next 3 weeks. We did a collaboration with La Reforma, another distillery in town, and they're amazing. But it really was through the connections that we did, and that's how we ended up even getting the agave in the first place. It was really hard to try to source agave. We looked everywhere, and it was one of those things where I completely spaced it, and then I was like, why not go to the Hispano and ask them? And then you guys put me in contact with some people, and it actually went really quick as soon as I was in contact with the right folks. So if you guys want a margarita, come by.
Well, speaking of margaritas and all of your drinks, you know, I think one thing that's really great, and you might as well take this moment since you're on this platform, you guys have an award-winning spirit, your first year out of the gate. Can you share with us a little bit about that?
Yes, and I actually forgot about our rum.
I got you, Frank. I got you.
I appreciate it. Our rum won a gold medal at the Denver International Spirits Competition, and we actually sourced molasses out of the Caribbean. And then we also get our sugar. It comes through New Orleans, but I also think that's out of the Caribbean also. So we do, I mean, a lot of different things. But if you guys have never had our rum, it's fantastic. A lot of other rums, and not to throw anybody under the bus, but Bacardi, they basically make everything like their vodka, so they strip away a lot of the flavors in their rum, and we try to stay pretty true to what rum should taste like. We don't strip out all the flavors. So if you want a real true rum, come by us. And we actually aged it too. I don't know if I told you that, but we have some aged rum also.
So I think that's, I know for a fact, I've been lucky enough to taste all your spirits. I think it's delicious, but I think the moral of the story here is that you're able to, believe it or not, you know, have this vision of where you're going to get the best product to put into your product, the best, you know, ingredients that can go into your product. And you've sourced from all over to make that happen. And here you are already winning awards in your first year and a half, if you will, in business. And so that's a really big deal. So we go back to the collaborations and the partnerships in the community. So with that being said, I want to jump over to Jennifer, because Jennifer represents a lot of these businesses and helps them along the way. And Jennifer, tell us a little bit about what you guys do. And then maybe you have some stories from some of your members that you could share with us that have really great supply chains or have a story about New Mexico.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yeah, so here at the Manufacturing Extension Partnership, we have a team of engineering and manufacturing experts that are able to work with any manufacturer throughout the state to help them remove any barrier they may have to growth. And so we do that just like we've been talking about here through collaborations and partnerships, or the expertise that we have on staff maybe is able to remove one of those barriers as well. And so it's obviously been an interesting time the last couple of months. We've seen a lot of supply chain issues rear their heads, but really, because it was such a global impact all across every supply chain. But like Frank mentioned, getting stuff from the Caribbean, we've seen similar instances happen with supply chain where a hurricane comes in, and we have some of those natural disasters that can affect our supply chain. And so some of the stories that we've had and what we've been working with some of our clients on recently, and manufacturers throughout New Mexico, is really that supply chain diversification. And so you'll find, especially in New Mexico, where we're so authentic and cultural about what it is that we're manufacturing, especially in kind of the food and beverage industry, we really want to find that supply chain and that sourcing partner that lives up to our brand and our reputation and that company's particular value chain. And that's important as well. We also like to stress that plan B is important as well. And so if you find that one favorite, have you done the risk mitigation to say, okay, so who's my plan B going to be? If I'm going to go to this one most of the time, do I have that plan B set up? And that can look at not only a different company, a different country, a local supply. So we want to make sure we have that geographic diversity. Do we, and then also, do we really understand that support, that entire chain of activity that's happening, like Frank mentioned? That's so important to understand, that it's sourced in Mexico but comes through a distributor in Texas. A lot of times folks assume that where they bought it from is where it's made, and so they don't realize that there was a nut and a bolt that comes from a different country, and when that's disrupted, your entire piece is disrupted. So so those are a couple of the things that we've been working on with folks through this time. And then, just as was mentioned, understanding the new agreement, the Mexico-Canada agreement, and how we can really take advantage of that to make sure that as we look at reshoring or getting closer to our shores from overseas in North America, and how we take advantage of that as we're looking at our diversification and supply chain.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was some really good information. I especially like the piece about how easily the supply chain could be disrupted. And quite honestly, we're during COVID right now, and I think that as that has happened quite a bit, we've heard stories of places, businesses, industries not being able to get the basics of what they need. So therefore, the supply has been reduced, and that also drives the cost up. So there's a lot of things happening right now. And with that, I'd like to jump over to Burley. He definitely has a background in this area, and maybe you can share with us how COVID has disrupted some of that, and how do we move forward?
Yeah, thanks, Shannon. So I'm Scottish. My middle name is Duncan. It's my clan name in Scotland. That's where one of my favorite things to drink, Scotch, comes from, which is a variation of whiskey. When tariffs or taxes make my Scotch more expensive, they also make it harder for Frank to sell these fantastic locally sourced, sustainably sourced, right? When you go to Mexico to get the agave from the place it grows best, it's the easiest and least resource burden to grow it there and get it to him here, and to make it and send it to them. Recently, this big trade wars erupted over distributing alcohol, spirits, and it's artificially created by the government, right? People like Frank are looking to sell their products in Europe. Some of these companies have 25% of their revenues tied up in these conversations. Really great for their margins, which mean their employees, which mean their sustainability as an employee at a model, and growing their manufacturing and their system. Those are being dysfunctionally taken apart when you arbitrarily put a tax in the middle of that relationship and take away the ability for some of these companies to do business together. And one of those things you see right now, that complexity of artificial barriers, or these unique ones we see like COVID or hurricanes, is that they cause massive chaos. So a tariff, COVID-19, they're the same kind of chaos in their own facets. Obviously, there's a danger in COVID-19 that's important and we need to prioritize. But there's a real danger in destroying your supply chains. There's a real danger in destroying your end distributors. There's a real danger in destroying the relationships that make that bolt happen for that part that makes that whole car happen. Or that plant that Frank uses to make that unique earthy. I can't wait to try it, by the way. Fantastic rum sounding. And that whole thing is really dynamic and complex, and it really has a delicacy that is missed many times by administrators who apply things like tariff taxes in the nuances of what happens. And I think I've told the story before. There's a pecan grower in southern New Mexico who negotiated his own tariff reduction with China from the 40% down to 7%, just by having conversations and developing relationships as we do in business. And the minute the tariffs came in, those went up to 47%. And his margins are gone, and his export business is gone. His employees may be furloughed or laid off. And that hurts all of our economy. So I encourage you guys to keep looking at that. We have a website, Trade Builds New Mexico, where you can get more information about it. But COVID-19 is a unique, it highlights, as well as it's a dynamic challenge, it showcases what happens when you have this global network that can come together very quickly. And these supply chains do that. They allow people in very diverse systems to come together to find ways to solve problems. And Frank can start making this antiseptic, or what am I thinking of? The antibacterial hand wash, right? And a lot of distillers have gone to that because they understand alcohol. Things like that happen very dynamically in a system where you have supply chains that are globally connected and dynamic and able to move without barriers from government. So it's wonderful to watch it. It does happen. They break down, but they reemerge and they come through it in the more dynamic way as they need to meet the needs of our consumers.
So that was really great. Thank you, Burley. Before I want to move back to David here, but before we do, I just want to say our president and CEO here at the Albuquerque and Solano Chamber is watching, as he always does, and he said to say he heard that comment about his team, Burley.
Oh, Steelers? Is he a Steelers fan?
No, he is not. He's a Green Bay fan.
Oh, yeah, right. What am I thinking? Packers. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I'm a Niners fan, man. I gotta rep my team, man. And by the way, the United are awesome. So thanks for repping them.
I'm Niners too.
That's hilarious. So, okay, away from sports, guys, away from sports. If you go there, then we got to go shopping and shoes and all that supply chain stuff. So we'll save that for another one. So David, let's move back to you. Kind of give us a little bit of your perspective. I know you've worked in this industry for a very, very long time, and I know that there is successful attempts at supply chain and unsuccessful. What are some of the ways that people can try to be on top of being successful when sourcing? What are some of the tidbits of information you can share with them? Especially, say, for instance, you can pick any industry you'd like, but like in the case of Frank, he's a very, very specific industry, and he did have to do a little bit of a reach out to find out that info.
You're exactly right. And Jennifer actually made some great points earlier about the duplicity that you need to have, and the multiple sources backup, sometimes even not only a secondary, but maybe even a tertiary backup on some of your key ingredients that you're going to need when manufacturing any kind of a product, especially food products. Again, all it takes is a bad crop year, a drought. These kind of things can all change things dynamically, no different than, say, a COVID or a tariff. And I think the key is a lot of people rely on single sourcing and that relationship. And while the relationship is all important, you definitely need to have backup places in mind. And maybe, maybe you're using a product that has cinnamon. Well, Vietnam is a great place for cinnamon, but there's several other places. So, find out those best growing regions, like was mentioned earlier, and make sure that you've got sources of supply potentially that could be vetted quickly out of those places in case something were to happen. That's probably the number one thing I can't stress the most, because those small little blips can basically shut down your operation. And I've seen it happen way too many times where a single ingredient keeps people from making their product, and it's really a grown product. I mean, you're not even talking about packaging. That's a whole nother dynamic in and of itself.
So that's interesting because think about, for instance, I'll use the agave as an example. I mean, what happens, to that supply chain if there's a natural disaster or there's a disease or something hits the plant? And so there's the plan A and B is always really, really good, but those things happen. I'm sure that they've happened throughout time, and people have had to source from other areas, David, around the world.
Well, and sometimes, to your point, a number of manufacturers have had a plant fire or a flood or a hurricane. It shut down their operation. They were only making one product in that particular plant, and they had no backup way to make it because they were limited in what they were producing in that particular plant. So whether you're on the manufacturing and selling side or whether you're the ingredient supply side, that happens all the time. And without a backup plan, several different contingency plans, you can find yourself in deep or hot water in a big hurry.
So planning ahead and having a plan B is always the best way to go, it sounds like, for sure. So Burley, I want to bring it back to you a little bit in regards to that same question. You've been around this industry for a very long time. What have been some of the ones that you've seen that have had, maybe natural disasters or something happen to them? How do they recover? What's some advice you can give there?
Well, the way to recover, certainly the demand is still there, right? So if you're not able to meet it and nobody else is necessarily, hopefully, hopefully somehow you're able to get that product to market. The consumers are looking for it. If it's not being provided by you, if you're the only distributor of it, then others may try to emerge to take that demand. But I think that David nailed it down. I think you have to plan for contingencies. I think you need to understand the product that goes into your system, what you have, why it grows where it does, what it needs, what other options you have. As you mentioned, cinnamon in Vietnam. You can probably find 100 versions of this conversation where a product has failed because war broke out, because famine broke out, because economic collapse broke out. I mean, there's a million reasons that you can have disruptions in your supply chain. But the key is to have that contingency, to have the ability to plan around the failure, to understand your demand from your consumers, and to all know how flexible they are with it. If you lose track of them on a month of supply, are they going to go to another competitor? Do you have the option to have flexibility in getting a new distributor set up, a new system set up? You have to have that kind of commitment to sustainability in your ability to deliver product to your end consumer, the kind of contracts you have that you need to meet in your competition or with your distribution chain, and the kind of penalties that you'll incur if you don't understand the system that you're dealing with. And I think Angela has more experience than me. Angela, do you have any good examples of situations like this where you've seen a dynamic emerge of supply disruption and how that worked out?
Yeah, sure. And we're seeing a lot of it right now in the context of COVID, where we're seeing suppliers of baby products and baby clothes that are switching to making masks. And they're working with their supply chain because they already have the access, they have the product, they have the fabrics, they have the ability to make the products. So they're shifting and filling a gap. You're selling other instances, certainly with our distillers, and they worked with their local, state, and federal officials to get that provision so they could make that hand sanitizer. That actually required a regulatory change. And now they're making hand sanitizer in addition to other products. You're seeing this in the case of a number of products. There's a process right now. If you have a product that could be COVID related, a manufacturer of speakers that's used in hospitals, emergency rooms, or a tent that's outside for testing, or you have gloves, or you have other products that could be COVID related, there is a process right now to get an exemption. The other thing I would say is a lot of companies don't know it, but these exemptions, you don't have to apply for it necessarily. If you're suddenly on the list and you find out your gloves are exempted, you get to tap into that benefit too. So being close to your industry and industry association, really, really important. Just saw this recently where a group of sports companies came together, and there's sports companies that support women in sports, which is really cool, but their protective gear was impacted through all the tariff situation. They came together to get helmets and other parts of protective gear working together to change those policies. So communicate up and down your supply chain, so you're talking to each other, communicate with your industry partners, and then really pay attention to the changes every day, because there are opportunities to thrive, maybe slightly adjust your product, and build business during a very uncertain time.
Hey, can I add one more thing, Shannon?
Please, please.
So if you think about another place that's timely with COVID-19, think about vaccines. It usually takes longer than 15 years to get a vaccine, because the FDA is a very tight, controlled, long process that's very expensive and timely for that, and they have the reasons to do that. But they have implemented those protocols and pushed themselves into the system. On average, one vaccine, 15 years. Because this situation highlighted the need for that vaccine this quickly, 70 companies, not one, 70 companies are looking at developing a vaccine in a year and a half. That's the difference when you get the system in its proper place, where the entrepreneurs and innovators are driving at it with the proper level of government interference to make sure it's safe and effective, which we'll see with this COVID vaccine. But it's a good example that you were able to accelerate from 15 plus years to 1.5 years by just letting the entrepreneurs drive at the consumer value that they're trying to get to.
That is really a great example. And speaking of great examples in COVID, I was in between getting all these text messages. This goes to show who's out there watching and who's out there saying, letting us know what's going on. But I wanted to say, I just got this message. It's a link. And I'm going to just read you the first paragraph. It's the mayor of Albuquerque promoting Albuquerque as a foreign trade zone. I don't know if you guys have gotten this yet, but it just showed up on my phone. It says local company, New Mexico Transloading, who's the company, gains designation to operate out of Albuquerque's foreign trade zone. It says today, Mayor Keller unveiled a new website to promote Albuquerque's foreign trade zone. The website will position and promote Albuquerque as the new ideal location for global companies who are looking to relocate for a stable, healthy, strategically located city as they adjust to their supply chain disruptions during COVID. So it's very interesting, and I bring that up because as I was reading it, it's very interesting that the creativity doesn't just happen at the small business level, it happens at a community level. And people realizing the different things that Albuquerque has to offer as a city. Could be anything from weather, space, price. There's so many different reasons to open manufacturing here in New Mexico and Albuquerque. And it actually goes on to talk about Albuquerque's location along the country's two biggest interstates, our rail infrastructure, and our proximity to Mexico and our foreign trade zone capabilities have always made us a really great place to want to do business. So again, guys, this is just, all the way up. Trade is so important to the way that we do that. And even leadership at the top recognizes that. Now, we do have barriers sometimes when it comes to government and what have you. But I think the louder the voice, the more information, the more informed you are as a business owner and a consumer, you can help to kind of drive that. As Burley said, right now we're in the middle of COVID, what's needed? A vaccination. And so these people are driving this in this fast and furious, if you will, world that we're living in to create this vaccination. And so that's what's happened. So if you're creative during COVID and you decided to make masks instead of baby clothes or hand sanitizer instead of vodka, you're going to figure out a way to make it through. Your creativity is going to shine. We said it the other day, necessity is the mother of all invention. And so here we are in a very, very, very important moment of need. And so this is all happening. So I just want to kind of start closing up a little bit for the hour. We've had a great hour. We've had a lot of discussion about supply chain and the importance of what it is. I want to kind of bring in Edwin right now just to kind of talk for a few minutes on the LIBRE initiative and how you guys are supporting local small businesses and their ventures into trade.
Sure. Thank you for having me. Before I mentioned that, I kept thinking throughout the hour that the one of the links in trade as well that a lot of our volunteers have been talking about, young people that we meet with on a weekly basis, is the employer-employee relationship as well. Probably one of the most important links in that chain, and one that I think a lot of young people tend to, there's a lot of leaning towards socialism now. And I think we as freedom-minded people need to do a better job at explaining how freedom in that relationship is really for the benefit of both the employer and the employee as well. So that's something for all the listeners to consider. I'm sure we don't have time to get into it today, but perhaps somebody else in the panel would like to comment on it. In terms of helping local businesses, I know that that's something that Burley could speak on a little bit better than me. Like I said, I've just started working with the organization, and I'm making a lot of contacts in the community. Ruben, who has been on the panel before, has done a great job reaching out to local schools and local school suppliers in order to help out people who are in a back to school mode right now, and also the homeschooling community.
Thank you so much, Edwin. And that actually, Angela, maybe we could move over to you real quick. I'd love for you to share with us the website and how we can find you, and what are some of the great things that we can find on the website when it comes to trade for anybody out there that's listening that might be interested in more information.
Great. So you can actually probably see behind me, it's the tradebuildsnewmexico.com. Really easy to pull it up on the site. You're going to see some great facts about the impact to agriculture and manufacturing and small business. And you're going to find a way to share your stories too. And in a moment, I'm going to turn it over to Burley about, this isn't just a fact sheet. It's something, this is an active campaign where we're really trying to highlight the stories of how companies and entrepreneurs and innovators in New Mexico are really benefiting from trade. So you're going to see a bunch of that there. And at the end of this series, Shannon, you're going to see all these wonderful webinars posted online. So people will get the chance to come back and check out this series and hear more about it. Burley, do you want to share more about the campaign and what we're doing on the ground?
Yeah, thanks, Angela. So the campaign itself, what we're looking for instance, with Hollow Spirits, is it Hollow Spirits?
Yeah, Hollow, HOLLOW Spirits.
Yeah. So it would be a good example of this. We're looking for companies that are local, that understand New Mexico. You know, you were born and raised here, same as I was, and we have an understanding of what this unique state has to offer and how we can leverage those relationships and those resources to make something beautiful for the world to share. And so we want to highlight how important the global system is, whether it's as a consumer for your product or as a producer for the end components. And so we'd want to do a video with you. We have a professional team, and this is open to anybody listening. We're doing vignettes with companies because we want to highlight with a professional team how good you guys are at driving that innovation, at being the entrepreneur in your space and driving a product for New Mexicans or for outside of the New Mexico in the United States or outside of the world, outside the rest of the world. And we want to showcase what happens when you let the barriers fall. And in this case, tariffs, those taxes that are taken by governments and taken away from the consumers and the producers, and let that flourishing relationship dynamically build into something that's ever better every day. And so if you're out there and your story is there and you're losing business or you're impacted, or you want to share how opportunity can work better for you with lower taxes and tariffs, then we want to tell that story. We want New Mexicans to understand the need for you to be a part of the global conversation and how you already are and how that impacts them every day, whether it's as an employer, as an employee, as a recipient, or a person who provides tax base to the state or the federal government as sales taxes and things of that nature. So contact us, go to the tradebuildsnewmexico.com website, contact the Hispano Chamber and let them know as well if you have a great relationship with them. We want to hear from you. We want to, no charge to you, create a fantastic professional video and share it across the state and tell them what you guys are doing.
Thank you so much for that, Burley. And again, just to recap, all you businesses out there that are not sure I don't quite understand what's happening. What's happening is that this group, this Trade Builds New Mexico group, is wanting to promote exactly that. Trade in New Mexico. And how do we do that? By sharing inspirational stories, success stories, stories about things that people are already doing in their business, like Frank. And so the goal is to have Frank and his team do a little vignette, a little video that they can share across the state, across the country. This particular webinar series, I believe, is happening in some other states. So to share state to state is really, really nice so that people can see what you're doing around the country. And you never know, making a connection is always a really great way too. So please reach out to us, reach out to Trade Builds New Mexico, reach out to Ruben and team at LIBRE. It doesn't matter, just reach out. Let us hear your story. And if you're not sure if you even have a story, reach out so we can go through and help you kind of determine, maybe you just need a little bit of guidance, a little bit of mentorship, a little support. You might have a product or service that would be perfect for Trade Builds New Mexico. So with that being said, I want to thank everybody for being with us today. I want to say thank you to Jennifer. If you guys have any questions, Jennifer, can you quickly tell us how to find you and where to find you?
Absolutely. Website's the best, www.newmexico, spelled out, MEP, the Manufacturing Extension Partnership.org. And you'll get to our team that's located across the state, and we will get you answers and figure out how we can best help.
Thank you, Jennifer. David, I'm sure you have a lot of clients. People are probably knocking on your door there, but if somebody wants to get in touch with you and you know, use either your expertise, hire you, whatever it may be, how do we get in touch with Mr. David Shams? You're on mute, David. The joy of technology.
Yeah, well, it's not want to interrupt anybody else. It's just really simple. Just dshams, DSCHAMS 15 @gmail.com. That's the easiest way. And by the way, Frank, just like Burley, I will be down there to visit you.
Yeah, Frank, when are you coming out with the green chili scotch?
Wow,
Never seen it, but I'd love to try it.
I love green chili and I love scotch. I'll have to experiment and see how those taste together. I don't know about it yet though, but I'm down to experiment.
So thank you so much, David and Burley, for supporting Frank and his spirits, if you will. And Frank, I'm gonna come to you to also say thank you. Please share with everybody how we can find you online. Give us your location, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, so basically you could follow us on social media. We're just under Hall of Spirits for Facebook, Hall of Spirits NM for Instagram. People, if you need to get a hold of me, my email is frank@hallofspirits.com. And we are also located at 1324 First Street Northwest. So it's about a quarter mile north of First Street and Mountain. And so if you guys want to come by, I'll give you a tour. I'll show you around, let you kind of know what we do. We have plenty of experiments and barrels. I'll add green chili to one of them. And yeah, that's about it. But no, thank you guys so much. There was a lot that you talked about that has actually affected us personally, whether it's all the tariffs overseas on our bourbon, which affected us a lot, whether it's the NAFTA and going back and forth, or COVID and having trouble finding hand sanitizer or being able to produce hand sanitizer. But no, thank you. This was very, very informative, folks. I appreciate you.
Well, you know, Frank, we aim to help educate in any way that we can. So we wanted you to share your story, but we also wanted you to hear a little bit about what this is in hopes that you can go back and watch this series and really help your business. You know, I'm going to highlight everybody here. Please get out and visit Frank at Hall of Spirits. He's just a little bit north of Marble, where everybody heads downtown anyway. And so head over and have a delicious cocktail, lavender vodka, pumpkin vodka, delicious whiskey program. We're really excited that you opened up and you decided to put spirits on the map in New Mexico. You're the biggest right now and growing the fastest, and we're super thankful to have you as part of our community and part of the Hispano Chamber, and also small new business of the year last year. Heritage Awards. So again, congratulations to you and your team. And thank you to everybody. I'm so excited. Wednesday, we're going to have a recap webinar. It's going to contain some really, really great information, and we're also going to be visited by some really big guests. We are excited to have them as part of our panel. So I hope you guys will join us for the last in our series, Trade Builds New Mexico, on Wednesday, right here on the Hispano Chamber Facebook page, and also on our website, and also on Zoom, while we talk to Secretary of Agriculture, Mr. Jeff Whitty, along with our President and CEO, and Mexican Consul Norma Ong, and Randy Trask from the New Mexico Trade Alliance. So we're going to have a really great team to recap everything that we've learned this month, and we hope you guys will join us at noon on Wednesday. Everybody have a great week, and we will see you guys midweek. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.